It's not easy to study as an international student in the US, you know. If you don't have a family who's going to support you, you know, if you're not lucky, you know, to find people like I did who helped me out, you know, throughout my study process here in the US, it's going to be rough for you as an international student. I'm not going to lie or sugarcoat anything. And there are people saying, oh, I can work, you know, to pay for school, you know, can I work to pay for school, you know. Like, there are so many of you accepting to go to schools that you're supposed to pay $20,000 a year. How are you going to pay that? That's a question I ask you. How are you going to do that? You cannot do that.
Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Dr. Ayo Kunle Omoni. If this is your first time, please endeavor to click the like button. That's the only way you can help us on this channel. So some couple of days ago, YouTube suggested a video to me. So I saw this Ghanaian YouTuber. I think his name is Nana Kwesi Amake. Apologies if I mispronounce your name. But I found the video very, very helpful. I could relate to his story. He shared an amazing story about his experience studying in the US. And several years ago when I left Nigeria, this kind of video would have been helpful for me because I wasn't informed about the reality of studying abroad. My thought process at that time was like, okay, let me leave Nigeria to study abroad, escape, you know, the hardship and everything. And I thought everything is going to be rosy, life is going to be great. But you know, it's not particularly true. You are bound to go through so many challenges when you travel abroad to study. This guy shared an amazing story about his own reality studying in the US. And I'm going to react to the video clip. And please do subscribe to his channel. I'm going to put the link even in the title of this video and also in the description.
Hello everyone, in today's video I'm going to share with you my honest opinion about studying here in the United States as an international student. This video is not to discourage you or anything from coming here, but it's also to open light about, you know, what you should expect when you come study in the US. You know, like, don't expect too much when you come in to study here. Don't think.
The video is not meant to discourage anyone. You can still come to the US or whatever country you want to go to and pursue your dream. It's just an awareness, so you can be aware in advance about the possibility of what you're going to meet when you get to your destination.
In 2015, I decided to apply to come study here in the US. You know, I applied to Western Nebraska Community College, if you don't know about it. In February, I got accepted and I moved here around July 29. That's when I arrived in the US through JFK, New York. I got to say, you know, I was very fortunate enough, you know, my dad, I transferred about $6,000 to $7,000. You know, he basically cleared his bank account just to help me come study here. I know some of you may not have that option. So it kind of like gave me a solid foundation to build upon. It helped pay for my full-year tuition and my first semester, you know, room and board because I lived on campus. But then it surely didn't pay for my second semester. I didn't think ahead how I was going to pay for the rest of it. And not to mention, when I was coming to the US, I only had $130 in my pocket when I first came to the US.
That's money for grocery, $130 something. That's absolutely nothing coming to the US. Even in Europe, that's nothing. But this guy's story is typical.
I didn't have any family member here. It was just me, myself, and I. For the first semester, you know, of about 4 to 5 months, getting to Christmas, I only had $130 to spend. I was able to manage that money, you know, which I'll say that is not a lot of money to spend. Literally, all I was eating was the cafeteria food. By then, I was playing soccer, so I didn't have time to work. Doing soccer, you're traveling and all that, so I couldn't really work, you know, because it was season. And Christmas time came. We are told we cannot live on campus during Christmas break, and I don't know anybody. So for me, luckily, I was going to a church, you know, where I told the pastor, you know, I told my coaches, hey, I need a place to live for Christmas break. I don't have nowhere to live. It was rough. You know, even my whole family said they didn't have a place for me. So luckily for me, the pastor made an announcement in the church and somebody stood up and said they'll help me out. It was a family of about 6 or 7, during those times, I lived with them. I was kept thinking, how am I going to pay for my, next semester, room and board, which was going to be rough, and how am I even going to take care of my feeding? The guy told me, in life, if you want somebody to help you, you need to have a plan. And I had to think twice about, what I was going to do. So the second semester came. He told me, can I talk to the school to see if they can let me live off campus? And I went to talk to them. They said, no, I signed a contract, so I have to follow through with the contract, which made everything, rough. But I was lucky enough, this family, offered to buy me groceries, So basically all I had to do was just eat the cafeteria food, and they were bringing me groceries on the side to help me out. So what I did was I applied, when school reopened, I applied for a job at the cafeteria, which was the best decision I made. If you're an international student and you think you don't have enough money, I'll suggest applying to a job at the cafeteria will be a good bet for you, because then after work you get free food. Even in some places you get to eat before you work, and also after, when you're done, you get to eat, which is a good deal, So as time went by, I had a plan to pay for the rest of my tuition. So every paycheck I had went straight to paying tuition. Every paycheck's tuition, which was rough because I couldn't do much as a person, So I decided to, figure out some opportunities that were on campus. I talked to the financial aid office. They told me about opportunities, and so I got to find out that you can actually audition for music. They have music on campus. I don't know how to read music, so I was scared at first. But my friend told me, hey, you should audition. I've heard you sing, your voice is not too bad. So I did audition, and yeah, I got it. They gave me a half tuition at first, so I got half of my tuition figured out. And I also found out, they were giving scholarships to be a student ambassador. So I decided to also interview for that job. And luckily for me, I was able to get that job too. Plus, they also had scholarship to be a mascot where you wear the costume. So I also did audition. I also auditioned for that, and boom, I got that too. So now it's like everything started clicking. I got a job, working 20 hours a week, I became the mascot, I also became the student ambassador. I was doing music, I had to quit soccer because it was a decision I had to make. You see, that sacrifice soccer that I love very much, or struggle to pay for tuition. That's why I always encourage international students to always go to cheaper schools, because in the end, if you can't afford it, you're going to struggle.
That's a good advice. So when you're applying into universities, don't just apply blindly. I recommend community colleges. They are way cheaper. And again, target community colleges that are ready to sponsor your visa. The community colleges that are ready to give visa supporting documents, because not all community colleges are able to give you such documents. So apply to community colleges, they are way cheaper.
So then during the summer I lived on campus, and I was just chilling, I was fed and everything, it wasn't like a hard job to do. I used those times to look for, housing off campus, because I signed a contract for 1 year and the contract expired. So now I got an option to look for a place off campus. So I was lucky to find a place off campus. I signed the lease for August, and I moved my stuff out before school reopened. So now, school has reopened. I have scholarship to pay for school, half tuition scholarship. I have a mascot scholarship. I also got academic scholarship because I had a really high GPA of about, 3.9 or 4.0, I believe. So, so I got all that. So now I'm working 20 hours a week. I'm going to class, I'm a mascot, I'm doing music, I'm a student ambassador, I'm doing all this just to survive and pay for school. So I always tell myself, whenever I hear somebody say, hey, how can I get scholarship, the school didn't accept me and all that, I gotta tell you, it's rough. You gotta understand the point that these schools are coming from. Nobody's going to offer you money if you're not doing anything for them in return. You got to be able to offer them something in order for them to give you a scholarship, or even to look at you and say, hey, you deserve some money from us. It's not easy. So don't feel entitled, if you don't get a scholarship or anything. It's rough. You got to put in the work to get the scholarship. But I've got to say, living off campus was rough because I didn't have a car. When it was summertime, I had to walk almost everywhere on a bike. You know, when it was like snowing, I had to walk like about 20 minutes because my school was 20 minutes away from campus. You know, it wasn't easy, to be honest. There were days my hands were freezing, I couldn't feel my hands. You know, there were days I didn't even want to go to class because, man, you know, the struggle was real, you know. And also I do support my family here and there, so I had to, the money that I got from working, I had to send some home, you know, to help the family out, you know. There was time I didn't even have money on myself. So I gotta say, it's not easy. I was very blessed enough, somebody from the church, I don't know what touched this guy, but he decided to give me a car for free, which was crazy. It doesn't really happen a lot. So I was so lucky. This person, you know, decided to give me a car and also paid for about 6 months of insurance for me, which was which was mind-blowing beyond reasoning. You know, who would do this for somebody that they barely know? You know, so that kind of made things a little bit easier for me, you know, going back and forth to school, you know, waking up and not having to stress about paying for a car, you know, and insurance. Because I've got to say, it's a little bit expensive, you know, to go to school here in the US, you know. Like, I mean, not talking about tuition. Tuition can be expensive, but you're talking about where you live. Like, rent can be expensive depending on the location where you find yourself. You know, talking about paying for electricity, gas, water. You know, you're paying for sewage depending on where you live. You also have a phone bill that you have to pay. You know, if you sign a contract, you have to pay monthly. But if you do pay as you go, you have to pay as it expires, you have to pay for it, or paying for Wi-Fi, you know, and food and all that. It can be really expensive, and it all adds up to it. So I always encourage people to consider all these factors, you know, before even deciding to come study in the US.
Don't just think about the tuition fee. There are so many things involved, you know, registration, your rent, your bills, transport. I mean, it's almost as expensive as your tuition fee, you know, going for, I mean, long term, if you calculate it for a period of 1 year, if not more expensive. So you have to put it at the back of your mind that it's not only the tuition fee. You should consider other factors as well.
I decided to go one more year, you know, fight. Just to, you know, buy myself time to figure out what I want to do. So in my final year, I was given a full tuition. You know, so now even working 20 hours a week, you know, student ambassador and all that, you know, it kind of paid for all my school for me, and I was getting extra money back from the school. So I was basically getting paid to go to the school, except I had to pay for living off campus and all that, you know. But then I also found out there were scholarships for, you know, to sing in the church off campus, like a choir. So I auditioned and I got a scholarship for it. You know, it was giving me around $350, you know, a semester. So I went ahead and then signed up, and I also got that. So after I graduated from my community college, I decided to take a year off, you know, and use my OPT option. You know, so for every international student, just so you know, if you go to a community college, after that you have the option to apply for OPT, you know, which is optional practical training, which is something you can use in your major to work for 1 year. You know, but for your bachelor's and your master's or PhD, you can get to work for up to 3 years depending on your major, if your major fall under STEM. If it's a non-STEM major, you know, like, you have to work just for 1 year. And I did talk more about this in my video on how I was able to pay for my school. After graduation, I moved in with my host family. You know, this was a host family I found through the church, you know, in the past when I was going to school. So they moved to a different location, so I moved with them. You know, I lived in their house for a year just so I can work and save some money. You know, so for a year I didn't pay for electricity, gas, water. All I had to worry about was my phone bill, you know, and my gas for my car. So after living with my host family, you know, for a year, you know, I was able to find a school. They told me to apply to a school which wasn't too far away from them, so I applied to a school called Wayne State College, which is where I am right now today. It wasn't too expensive because of my GPA. I qualified for in-state tuition, which is still not too cheap. You know, I'm paying around $7,000, you know, ish a year to go there. You know, So I got accepted to the school. I went for orientation, and school started. Everything wasn't going too bad. I got a house off campus, but also, like I said, I was paying for electricity, gas, water bill, sewage, my phone bill, mail, and all that. Before I realized, the money I saved, like almost like half of it was gone. To be honest, after a year, and I was sending money home to support my family. But then I got a job on campus though, so that kind of helped me a little bit. 2018, if I didn't say that, that's when I graduated from college. I was in summer. And then like in 2019 was when I began attending school at the school, which is Wayne State College, if I didn't say that. And around that time, I believe, which was spring 2020, that's like getting close to the end of my 1 year of sitting there, was when COVID hit. Yeah, COVID messed everything up. Like literally, I lost my job, on campus through text message. It was scary. Like literally, I was almost broke. Like I didn't have any money. Like to be honest, like I was so scared. All the money I had was probably gonna just pay for my rent and utilities and probably for food. Like there was lockdowns and I didn't know what to do. And lucky for me, I had some friend who recommended me applying for an internship which related to my major, which was needed at that time, for customer service. So I was like, wow, I never really thought about that. So as a business student, it related to my major. So I decided to, why not? I applied for this job, and lucky for me, I got it because it was an essential work, during that time. So I got the job, and that was what kind of kept me afloat a little bit to save some money for school and also to take care of myself. But then some friends I made way back when I used to work like as a sales associate after my associate degree came in clutch. They also decided, we're gonna help you out a little bit because you're a student and you're struggling. They helped pay for half of my tuition, which was insane. I've got to say. Since then, I've got to say, they've been helping me out here and there to pay for school. And I'm still here. Like the school don't really give me much scholarship, I've got to say. They give you like $500, like $480, like a year. So it's up to you to figure out, how you're going to pay for it, the rest of it. It's not easy to study as an international student in the US, If you don't have a family who's going to support you, if you're not lucky, to find people like I did who helped me out, throughout my study process here in the US, it's going to be rough for you as an international student. I'm not going to lie or sugarcoat anything. And there are people saying, I can work, to pay for school, can I work to pay for school, Like, there are so many of you accepting to go to schools that you're supposed to pay $20,000 a year. How are you going to pay that? That's a question I ask you. How are you going to do that? You cannot do that. I just got to be honest with you, y'all. So my advice for you is always look for a cheaper community college or like a cheaper 4-year college or university and go to. If you get scholarship, hey, you blessed. Big ups to you, for getting scholarship. Always look for scholarships, because they will help you so much, especially if you can afford it. Studying in the US is expensive, so if you can afford it, I'll encourage you to look for other options. Like in Germany or in Europe, in Finland, all those places, you can go to school there for free. All you have to do is pay for the fees, and take care of your your food and all that, So those options are there. Or you can also look in Canada if you can get scholarships. Mostly I recommend for master's degree, you can come study in the US, Canada, or those places. Because most of the time, there are a lot of scholarships for master's programs or PhD, just like graduate studies, especially in the research area. Especially in Canada, they do offer a lot of like research scholarships for international students. So you guys can look into that if you want, like if you have a research experience, I'll say do that. My advice for you is to take your academics seriously, as like especially when you're in high school. do a lot of volunteer activities like 6 months, do at least 2 or 3 of them for a duration of like 6 months, because it will help you, just take your academics seriously, especially your GPA. The SAT or ACT, I encourage you to take them if you can afford it, because it can save you a lot of money. You can get scholarship to go to school here, especially if you think you can afford paying for school in the US, and if paying for school and taking care of yourself, especially food, will be expensive, apply for a job at the cafeteria, because that will also save you a lot of money, So I'm gonna end the video here. I know I talked so much.
Wow, what a touching story. I mean, that's the reality of so many international students. So many international students out there, and it's an untold truth. I'm telling you, this guy's story, 80% of international students can relate. That's what you're going to face when you study abroad, especially in the US or in Canada. It's not cut and dry. It's not easy for you to come over and study without a very strong financial backing. If you know you are coming on your own, you have to be very, very realistic. I wasn't told several years ago, when I left Nigeria to study, even in Europe, that's not even that expensive. I felt, I went through some of the stuff this guy narrated here. So be very aware, be realistic with yourself, get ready mentally. You have to be aware that it's a struggle. And of course, it's doable. I'm not discouraging you, but I'm just trying to create the awareness so you'll be better prepared mentally. And so props to Nana Kwesi Amake, and I wish you all the best in your endeavors. Please check out his YouTube channel, and his YouTube channel's name is Nana Kwesi. I'm going to put the details in the description. Guys, if you enjoyed the video, please click the like button. If this is your first time, also subscribe as well. And if you want me to do all this kind of video, drop it in the comment section. Comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you again next time. Peace.